Welcome to this second screencast where we're looking at displaying a score in a separate world at the end of a game in Greenfoot, and this time we're going to use lists in order to display several strings to have more details on our final screen with all the scores there. My name is Mr. Govan. This is for my GCSE students. So this was the end of the previous screencast, and we're going to add some lists here. So we've got Java util already imported. Now let's start by we're going to create a list with all the players who are playing our game. So it's going to be a private list inside our class, and we need to tell Java that it is a list of string, which we do by typing it this way with those special brackets. I'm going to call it my players, and then I initialize a new object of type ArrayList, and it's of string again. And because this is a new object, I need to call its constructor, so I open and close my brackets. Right, now I've already here added 3 players, John, James and Joe, by calling the add method of my player object. Now I'm going to, because I've got these 3 players, I'm going to add a loop to loop through my list of players, and then I will add one label in a separate line for each one of these players. So over here, let's start a for loop. Now I'm going to use a counter I, and because I know exactly how many players I've got, instead of looking at the length of my string, I'm simply going to say I less than 3 as a stopping condition. Oh, I've used the wrong type of comma here. I plus plus, and there I'm going to add my labels. So now, each time I'm going through the loop, I'm going to call my calculate score method, and I'm going to modify my calculate score method a little bit, because I'm still going to give it my 3 parameters a, b, c, my 3 integers, but I'm also going to pass it the value of my counter I, which is here. So actually I need to remove that line there, and then let's pretty up my, that's looking a bit more normal. Right, so here I'm getting another integer I, and what I'm going to do simply is I'm taking my total a plus b plus c, and I'm going to times it by I, so each player is going to get a different score. Now this calculate score method, I'm just trying to do a simple calculation, but this is for you to actually do the maths and calculate exactly what it is that you need to display in that final screen. So there's my calculation. This is done. So I've got a new label. Now that new label, I need to place it, and I have to be careful because right now I would keep writing the label on top of each other every time, because they are all at the same position. So to avoid that, in order to have my label one line under each other, I'm going to delete this 200 here, and instead I'm going to put a y for my y coordinate. Every time I iterate through the loop, I'm going to add 60 to y, and then before going into the loop, over here, let's initialize y. Let's start at 100. So my first line would be 100 plus 60, so that would be 160, and then I would keep on adding 60 there, so this will be all right. Now let's do something a bit more interesting with the text I'm going to display here. So down there I want to add the name of my player, which I've got here. I want to make it appear inside the text I will display. So let's say I'm going to create a new variable here, not an integer, a string. Let's call it text, and text is what I will display in my label. So I don't want score over here, I'm going to have text instead, and I'm going to build up my line of text just before I put the label, create the label and put it on the screen. So let's start with text player plus. Now let's have the name of the player. So the name of a player is the name of my list, and now I'm going to use the get method from list object, and I want to get the item in the list, the I item in the list. So the first time I will go to through my loop, I will do get mplayer.get 0, then get 1 the second time, and get 2 the third time. So I'll have John, James, and Joe. Right. In Java, I cannot just keep on adding loads and loads of text in one instruction. So I need to start a second instruction to add something after player and then the name of my player. So text equals text plus, I'm going to add scores, oops, a space, and then finally text so it's not very pretty, but this will do the job. So what I want to add here is the value of my score, which is what I'm getting from my calculate score, which I am calling every time I go through my loop, and then it's changing. I haven't modified this since the previous screencast, so I've got this private variable called score, and that's a string, so I don't need to do any conversion over here, and then it's called score. Now you have to be careful here, the difference between this here is a private variable and that here is text that I've hard-coded into my code. Right, let's see if I'm getting errors. Ooh, I've got a typo there. Okay, so it's compiling. Let's do a final compile over there. Everything's going fine. Run, and then when I click my button, here we go, I've got my 3 lines. So the first time I go through my loop, I've got player, my player of 0, which is John, and then the score for John, because I equals 0, here I've got a plus b plus c times 0, so I've got 0. The second time I go through my loop, it's James, and then 10 plus 20 plus 30 is 60 times 1. And the last time I've got Joe, and then 60 times 2, 120. So here you have some simple codes to display several lines. And this being a string, you're not limited here by just those 3 names. You can add some more. And I hope this will help you with your project.